Hi, everybody. So we are back again. This is Staken Show. Staken stand for Standing Together Against Child Abuse and Neglect. I know we haven't been on for a while now. So yes, we are glad to be back. So just before we start the show, we will just give ourselves about a few more seconds for people to join. Hi, everybody. We are back again. So we're going to go straight in and we're going to allow our guests for this evening to introduce themselves. So, Ejiro, if you don't mind, we will start from you.
Yeah, so my name is Ejiro Akinrele, so a qualified social worker, over 16 years with children and families in the UK, based in the UK.
Great. And then can we come to you, William?
My name is William van der Poy. I'm a student social worker studying with the Goldsmith University. I used to be an early years teacher prior to that, and I'm also an autistic advocate.
Great. Yes, and I am your host, and I am also qualified social worker. So we're going to have an interesting discussion this evening, talking about child abuse and neglect. And in terms of what we aim to take away this evening, we want to sort of, understand what we mean by child abuse and neglect. Obviously, for many of us, we have an idea, but then in terms of, the ins and outs, and then the gray areas where we are not really sure whether it actually constitutes child abuse. So hopefully, please bring in your questions. We're doing this together. Bring in your questions, bring in your ideas, your suggestions, your contributions, because this is, we're doing this together, partnership. So, yes, just again, caution. We are also aware that this topic can be very difficult, or can be, can sort of bring some emotions for some people, and so if you are sort of affected by this discussion in any way, or if it sort of brings back some memories of yourself when you've been abused in some time back, and this is impacting on you, and then this kind of session is kind of making you relive those time. Please, if you need support, we've got the our number here. We've got our email address. Please get in touch with us, and we will support you. So we're going to go straight in. So child abuse. We will start with Jiro to talk to us about what she understands by child abuse. So please bring in your questions and your contributions. And like I said, we're doing this together. So Jiro, we're going to start off with child abuse. So when we talk about child abuse, what exactly do we mean by child abuse? Jiro, it seems we can't hear you.
I was on mute. So it's any deliberate or intentional action that actually harms a child, that was and any action that was done deliberately, either physical, sexual, emotional, or we can say by omission or commission. Any action that constitutes deliberate harm to a minor under 18 is seen as abuse. So something deliberate. So, for example, hitting a child consistently and injuring that child is, so that that anything that's deliberate, that constitutes something that's it's intentional. The action was done to harm a child, that constitutes an abuse. Consistent, and if it's happening consistently, something is happening on a consistent level, then it's seen as an abuse of a minor.
Okay, thank you, Ejiro. I know that we're going to go into more details.
Okay.
So, William, is it okay to come to you to talk about what we mean by neglect?
Yes. What do we mean by neglect? So neglect is the persistent failure to meet the child's basic physical and psychological needs, which is likely to end up or result in serious impairment in the child's development. It could be either their health or their emotional development. There are many types of neglect. I can mention 4 different types of neglect. We've got emotional neglect, we've got medical neglect, educational neglect, and physical neglect. It's worth noting also that neglect is the most common form of child abuse, and parents might be even neglecting the children without even realizing that they're actually neglecting them. And a child who is neglected may not get the love they need. They may not have the adequate clothing that's necessary for children, the support, supervision. They might not even have the correct nourishment, medical or healthcare. They might suffer other forms of abuse as well. So neglect leaves them vulnerable to other forms of abuse. They might not get the protection they need from the parents. I also want to add that neglect can take place in pregnancy, where the mother abuses substances. And
Okay, that's great. Thank you, William. So yeah, so we'll be going into details, and then William will shed some more light on the subjects of neglect. So we would go back again to talk about. So Jerome mentioned that we've got various aspects or various forms of child abuse and neglect, and Ejiro did say that we have physical abuse, emotional abuse, we have sexual abuse, and then we have neglect. And then yeah, so we were going to move on further to talk about what do we mean by physical abuse. Ejiro, are you able to help us? What do we mean by physical abuse? Ejiro, we can't hear you.
Yes. So for an abuse constitutes as described as being physical by a child being physically abused. um, I think it can be defined or described as a child who has been physically, you any objects, maybe the parents or the guardian or caregivers using an object, a physical object, to harm that child deliberately. So one of the examples of any physical object could mean a stick, a wood, uh, anything that is that you maybe a parent or guardian or even a teacher can lay their hand and physically use it to onto a child, onto a minor. That is described as physical abuse. So sometimes some people can use scissors, they can use anything, any object that comes to their hands. We describe that and use intentionally to and causes, and that if, for example, that object causes injury specifically onto a child, that is and persistently done by obviously the adult onto that child, it's described as physical abuse. So it could be, for example, I had an example of a mother who kept, using any object. And if I used a computer to it at a child, took the belt of this child and was using that belt, to hit the child consistently, that child sustained an eye, a wound to the left eye, and the eye was swollen. Obviously, that was quite serious. So the mother was using a method of constantly disciplining this child by using different. Sometimes the child described as, sometimes my mother will use a ruler, but she will use anything that she can lay her hand. Sometimes it's a stick, sometimes it's a belt, sometimes she will use the laptop and throw it at her. So whatever the mother found to use, she will use it on this child persistently. And obviously, she was charged by the police as physically abusing her son. That's as much as I can
Wow.
describe it.
Wow, that's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah. So you've mentioned a number of things which would constitute physical abuse. You talked about, the bit where maybe a parent or a caregiver might, hit a child with a belt. In terms of my experience, I've had situations whereby children and young people have been hit with belt, and I remember way back, in Ghana, for instance, that was practice. I mean, so Ejiro, if we've got a mom who is telling you that my child is really really I can't manage my child's behavior, and the only way my child would listen is me hitting that child. What would be your response to that?
So when we describe physical abuse, we're saying that in the United Kingdom, physical abuse is the persistent use of an object and using it to physically discipline a child, even whether intentional or intentionally. That's classified in the UK as a physical abuse. So I will tell, even in Ghana, uh, is this something that is consistently used to discipline this child? And I know in most African countries, we tend to use objects to discipline children. I know that. I mean, we all ourselves are nowhere in the next last well, old generations. But I know from my community in Nigeria, people still use belt, they still use any stick or broom to hit a child. I mean, what I used to say, I will advise the mother, I think because I know, I'm not quite sure what the law is in Ghana. Yeah, we're describing Ghana now. I'm not quite sure what the law is in Ghana. But I know in Nigeria, if a child is severely injured by a parent or a guardian, the police will be called. The police will be called, and it will be a crime. So for me, it's still an abuse. If it's persistent and you're using something, an object to injure a child to the extent that it's inflicting an injury on the child, that becomes an abuse, basically. Doesn't matter where we are in the world, whether we're in the developed world or we're in Africa, whatever we are in the world. The hitting of a child with physical objects, for me, it classifies, really, I mean, the World Health Organization actually classifies as an abuse of a child.
Thank you, Ejiro. And I think that, like you rightly said, it doesn't matter what part of the world you are. Abuse is abuse. But I think that what makes the difference is that, in terms of how that society responds to, certain types of abuse, it might differ from places to places, because in the UK, we are really strict on these things. And some society may not be as strict. But like you said, I mean, if you should injure a child, I mean, wherever you are in the world, if you should injure a child with, by hitting the child with a cane, that is severe. And I think that, wherever you are in the world, the police should be called to respond to it. And again, in terms of, some people would say that when I was a child, well, obviously, William, you can come in, but then what would your response be? Because I've had people say to me that when I was young, when I was a child, my parents used to hit me with canes and, their shoes and, belts and whatever. But then it made me the matured and disciplined adult that I am today. It did not kill me. William, what would you say to that?
The fact that I survived that kind of abuse doesn't make it right. I normally tell people who try to compare when they were younger to now, I tell them that our parents brought us up for a world that no longer exists. We need to move in with the times. Studies have shown that hitting children is abuse, and it has impact upon their development. It has impact upon their self-confidence. It's got impact upon their relationships. If, for example, as a parent, I hit my daughters, what message am I giving to them? That in future they can be hit by their husband and it's okay. That is called discipline. But is that so? No, it shouldn't be so. It is a crime, and we need to let everyone understand that it is a criminal offense.
Yes, and then just to come back on that, we've got Mr. Paul Watson saying, welcome. I welcome all of you back. Thank you for that. Kofi is saying that, hello, Elsie, Ejiro, and William Sekan is back. And thank you for that. Equia Frema is saying that Sekan is the best. Yes, thank you for that. So yeah, please bring in your comments and support us. Yeah, so we've lost Ejiro. Hopefully she would come back soon. Yeah, so I mean, William, just to pick up on what you said, the fact that somebody is saying that, the fact that you have experienced, physical chastisement doesn't mean that your children should also experience that. Because in terms of parenting, I always say that we are always looking at better ways to kind of do things, better ways. We always learn. Things are not, things are not like, static. We learn, don't we? We learn to do better things. We learn to do better. We learn to kind of improve on what we were taught, So we can't just stick to what we have been taught without kind of refining it or making it better, right? No. And like you rightly said, William, research is saying that when you hit a child or when you use physical chastisement on children,
trauma occurs. Yes,
there's trauma. Yes, there is that trauma. And again, there is that learned behavior. The child thinks that, or the child believes that it is okay to hit another child. In terms of, my practice, I have had situations whereby school would call and say that, we have a child in our class who has been hitting other children because the child has been hit at home for undesirable behaviors or for negative behaviors, the child thinks that it is okay to hit somebody when the person does something that you are not happy about. So, for instance, if you have a child in maybe, let's say, year 3 or class 3 or whatever, and then somebody takes that child's maybe pencil or book without, kind of asking permission, the child would immediately hit them. That is the natural response because that is what the child has been taught. So
It's a
learned
learned behavior.
behavior. And again, we have situations, I mean, Ejiro, I think you can come in here, situations of domestic abuse, which is as a result of these things. I mean, can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, you've just rightly said that they are learned behavior. I know most of us also believe in God, and he says, bring up a child the way they should go. That means the child is observing your action, the relationship between the partners, the relationship as to how the adults build relationship in public, within the family home, will determine how the children in that home will react to relationship. So if violence is a way of you managing relationships, no matter how that relationship is, whether it's a sexual relationship, mom and dad, or boyfriend and girlfriend, or brothers and sisters, uncles and aunties, or in the community where we find ourselves. If the adults in the little children, in the children's lives, address or resolve problems physically, the children are likely to follow the same way because that's the only way they know how to resolve issues. If the adults in their life resolve issues, in a violent way, they have to use physical violence. This is what the children will learn from that, what within that the dynamics of those relationships. So domestic violence, I mean, obviously there's serious research about the impact of domestic abuse, which is physical violence between the adults within the family home or within the adults within the community where that child finds themselves. What that child have learned is we've just talked about the traumatic experience, the impact they had on children of low self-esteem. Young women are likely to be, teenage parents. The boys are likely to go into crime very, very long, likely to be, likely to be in prison, low achievers. So there's serious impact. Research is actually telling us there are serious impact of, how domestic, the conflicts within the family home, the impact it had in the prognosis of a young person in that family. So if you want your child, as we're speaking to the world today, if you want your child to be an achiever, you want your child really to develop good sense of self, and to be able to face the world in a very confident way as they develop at every stage. We have to check ourselves. We check the relationship that we are building in our community, in our relationship between partners, and how we address those, whatever conflicts we have within ourselves. If we don't want to put the same, ideas onto your generations of your children's children or your auntie's children, or you got the children you are responsible for, basically.
Thank you, Ejiro. So we got a question on from CC. CC is asking that, what about those parents who justify their actions by quoting from the Bible? William, do you want to touch on this a bit and then we can kind of come in?
Okay, the Bible mentions in the Old Testament, I think it was Solomon who said it. He said, spare the rod and spoil the child. We need to look at the context under which this was written. It was written at a time and an age where these things were acceptable practices. The Bible also endorses things, or appears to endorse practices like slavery. He says, Paul was admonishing someone. He said that be good to your master. So it appears to sort of endorse slavery. But we need to look at the contextual framework of when that was written. For example, if God said to Noah in the book of Genesis chapter 6 verse 14, he said, Noah, go ye and build an ark of gopher wood. Does it apply to all of us? Should we all go out there and build an ark? No, we need to use our brains and rightly divide the word of truth. Right now, we know that hitting a child is harmful. At the time, it was justified in those days. Certain things were justified, such as killing people during times of conflicts. There are some verses in the Bible that say, wipe out everyone, man, woman, and child. Those were instructions. Okay, that appears to be okay around that time, looking at the context of it. But these days, things have changed, and we need to move on with the times. There are better ways of dealing with child behavior than using violence and being physical with them.
Thank you, William. So we can't really be taking things out of
Out of
context,
context,
And
yeah.
again, like William is saying, I believe that things change. I believe that practice change. I believe that ways of doing things always change. That is, this is life. This is the life we live. So we can't just say that because it's been practiced 20 years back, 30 years back, we are sticking to the same tradition or the same method. We have to evaluate, we have to review, we have to, look at things and then see how we can do things better. And again, like I always say, parenting is such that, we don't have a one size fits all, or we don't have a situation whereby a particular plan would work always. What we are saying is that things we are always looking at how we can kind of do things better. How you can improve on what you have been taught by maybe your parents. So we are always learning. We don't stop learning. In parenting, you don't stop learning. We are always learning. So in fact, so the bit about the Bible, people using the Bible to justify caning of children, hating of children, that is totally unacceptable. And again, research is saying that hitting a child promotes aggression in children. That is the more reason why we are discouraging and physical chastisement. And again, some people have gone to the extreme of hitting a child, causing various forms of injuries on children. We are saying that there are safer ways of disciplining your child without having to physically hit that child. There are safer ways of disciplining the child or correcting undesirable behaviors or correcting negative behaviors in the child. There are better ways of doing it, safer ways of doing that than causing bruises all over your child in the name of you wanting to discipline that child. The child becomes aggressive at the end of the day. The child learns that it is okay to hit people. I think we would move on. So thank you, Cici, for your question. It's good that we are kind of touching on this because it's really out there. And we would move on to talk about emotional abuse. William, could you take us to that? So what do we mean by emotional abuse?
Okay, the NSPCC describes emotional abuse or defines it as any type of abuse that involves the continual emotional maltreatment of a child. Another name for it is psychological abuse. Emotional abuse can involve trying to frighten the child, humiliating them, bringing them down, trying to isolate them, or ignoring the child. Another form of emotional abuse would be overprotection. Some parents are overly protective of the child. Protection is good, but when it goes above and beyond so as to restrict the child's normal development, it constitutes abuse. We know of parents whose interaction are beyond that of the child's developmental capability. Some well-meaning parents try to push the child beyond their intellectual capacity, especially when they want them to do overly well beyond their peers, because it shames the family name to see that their children are underachieving in class. So they'll push them and push them and push them beyond what they can actually do. it borders on emotional abuse. Also, when you prevent a child from participating in normal social interaction or getting them to see or hear of the ill treatment of another child, getting them to watch things that they shouldn't watch, it's also emotional abuse. Emotional and psychological abuse is the sustained maltreatment or neglect of the emotional needs of a child. If you look at all the stages of a child's life, they've all got emotional needs. For example, toddlers need to be understood. They need freedom to make mistakes. They need an example. They need encouragement. They need praises. For example, freedom to make mistakes. If a toddler is carrying a cup of water and he spills it, and he gets shouted at, is emotional abuse. Why? Because he needs to make the mistake. They need to drop it and pick it up to develop their brain connections. They need to develop the motor skills that they don't have at the moment. So to chastise them over that will be abuse. If you look at teenagers, for example, teenagers need independence. They need freedom to make their own choices. All children need boundaries. They have the need for approval. They need to be heard. The need for forgiveness. Whenever they do something wrong, they need to be forgiven, not to be held accountable all the time. If they do something wrong and you fail to forgive them, they know, they can feel it, and it's emotionally abusive onto them.
Wow. Thank you, William. That is really interesting. I mean, Ejiro, do you have anything to add to that? That is quite exhaustive. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that? Yeah. So the things we say to children, you know, the pressure we put on the child when a child is not kind of, maybe performing as we want them to, but maybe in school, the things we say, you are not clever, you've got coconut head, you know,
Yes.
you've got you've got and then in my language, in their like tree, we were saying that what bone,
What bone?
what bone,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so, I mean, imagine the messages we are giving these children, because saying the child that, and sometimes we compare the child to other people. I
Other
think, William,
children.
you touched on that. We compare the
Yes.
child to other people, saying that, this person's child had, whatever, 10 out of 10, or
Mm,
came out first in the class. What is in that your coconut head, or what is in that your empty head, you know and I
ex-
can just imagine myself as a child having these words said to me.
mm,
Imagine how this impacts on your confidence level, how this impacts on your self-esteem,
mhm.
your self-worth, because you might, and then, to be fair, we still have adults, who have kind of grown up now as adults, but then who still remember some of the things that had been said to them when they were young.
I
Because
remember things.
these things were so, like, significant, that it did stuck, in their head. It is still in their head, and they'll never forget it, because it was really hurtful, if you
Mhm.
know what I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, William, I mean, were you saying something?
Yeah, I said I remember things that were said to me as a child, hurtful things,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
yes, they've
Yeah,
actually informed decisions that I've made in the future. Future, it's
yeah.
informed so many things in my life. So whatever we tell children is very significant. It's like a seed.
It's like a seed that would grow, and that is why, I always say that I always believe in positive reinforcement, meaning that we should always look at, how, we should always look at praise. We should always emphasize on praise, or things that the child is doing well, and,
Mm,
commend the child, because many a times when the child does something right, we don't even kind of, it's normal. That is what you have to do. So there's no need for me to praise you. But then the research is saying that, with a positive reinforcement, it's saying that when you focus on the strength of the child, or what the child is doing well, the child naturally would want to do more of that.
mhm.
Yeah. So if
Yeah.
we want the child to display some behaviors that, we think that are positive, then we need to kind of give recognition to those positive behaviors. So if a child comes from school, I always give this example, and the child has got 100% attendance in school, and over here they would give you the sheet, don't they? Like the 100%, well done, and at time they'll give you a star. Or if the child gets a star from school, yeah, for behavior, for any good behavior, maybe being maybe doing something good in class and getting a star, right, an award. If the child comes home and the child is really eager to show you, oh mom, dad, I got a star for well-behaved child, or for helping out at dinner time, or for having 100%, and the parents are like, and you don't give, you don't acknowledge that. You just pick it up and then just put it somewhere. But then if the child brings trouble home, if you have a call from school that your child has done something really terrible and school is really worried, you would not ignore that. You would focus on that. So when the child comes home, or when you pick the child and you bring the child home, you will sit the child down to really talk about that. You would really be angry at the child. Tell me what happened. You're a very naughty child. We don't accept these things at home. But then, so you see the difference. So the difference is that we are giving more recognition or more attention to those negative behaviors, instead of reversing it and giving more attention to the positive behavior, because it's reinforcement. The child would want to reinforce those behaviors. The child would want to do that more. Those seemingly, I always say, those seemingly unimportant, or seemingly insignificant, and positives, let us give attention to them. And sometimes it's as simple as, and we are not again saying that go and buy them something really expensive to show that you are really happy for them, or you are really praising them. Sometimes it could just be giving them a little treat, giving them maybe even a clap, high five. Those little things means a lot for children. We're talking about emotional abuse. Ejiro, have you got anything more to add to this?
Well, I thought that was really, really good, insightful, Elsie, because I know working with children with challenging behavior, one thing, seriously challenging behavior, really, really violent children. And sometimes, even as a parent, it's very difficult to pick up what is actually positive that that child has achieved on a daily basis, sometimes, some parents. But one thing you did pick on, and I hope that a parent would pick this up tonight, whoever watched this, that no matter the challenge a child's behavior is, and you are struggling to manage that child's behavior, instead of being negative towards those behavior, let's think about one thing that's really that child's, I think I also just said it. One simple thing can be very, very simple. Is maybe, for example, something they've done well, because some children say that I'm never good enough. Whatever I do, it's never, every time my mom or dad wants to tell me off, it's when I've been naughty, not when I've been good. So, it's just looking at one little single thing. And I think I'm taking that away myself and say, look, no matter how difficult a child is and the behavior is to think about what is one little thing that that child has done well today. Some parents and some family, it will have to be on an hourly basis, sometimes in a minute basis. So that tells me that as a parent, you have to be on point to be able to recognize, okay, no matter how naughty a child or the challenge of the behavior is, instead of throwing back abuses, you're not good, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you're this. This is saying back, okay, let me sit back and really think about this. Is there anything else I can do differently to reinforce some of those positives so that I don't open my mouth and say some nasty things against my child that child will always remember in future, that will have a negative impact the other way around, 300 degrees negatively against that child.
Yep. Positive enforcement, giving recognition to those, those behaviors or those things that otherwise we think they are not, it's not a big deal. For instance, if normally, normally on a school day, you would have to go and knock on the child's door to wake them up. And then one day you'd go and they're already up. You should praise them. Well done. How did you do that? I'm really proud of you. I hope this would continue. Those conversations, don't just ignore. Don't just go in there, see the child up, and then just walk away, not saying anything, not because not saying anything means that you're not reinforcing the behavior. You're not praising the child, and the child does not see it to be so this is not even a big deal. I thought it was a big deal. It's not even a big deal because mom, dad did not even say anything, but then it takes those little things. We should be, we should recognize them. And then those little things that children would be doing even bigger stuff. Let's not us not only pay attention. I mean, somebody would say it's easier said than that, but then yes, but then it is, but then it's again, let us make the efforts. There's nothing like quick fix in parenting, but then it's the effort that counts. Is that willingness, to kind of improve, do things better, that matters. Yeah, all right. So yeah, we've touched on emotional abuse. And again, I just want to say that, telling a child that you are worthless, it's a very strong word. We've had, like William was saying, we've had, adults who would say things that, how they've carried these words from, like, years back when they were 4, when they were 5, when they were 6, when they were 7, when they were teenagers, the things that, they were told. And what happened, and then again, as parents, right? Research is saying that as parents, we are the child's first role model. The child believes what we tell them because we are a significant part of their lives. The child wants to grow up and be like mommy. The child wants to grow up and be like daddy. The child sees us as people who, like, are perfect. So whatever words that comes out from our mouth, these children hold it really, really high. They believe it. That is why it's important that, we are very mindful of our choice of words. Calling a child you are worthless. You are ugly. Nobody likes you. You are too fat. You are dumb. You will amount to nothing. Some adults have had that in their head that when they were younger, they were told that they would amount to nothing. So what happens is that when you tell the child that you will amount to nothing, the child believes that because the child would internalize those words, those messages. And then the child would think that actually maybe what that or mom is saying is true. Maybe, I mean, I'm not special, I'm useless, And then the child will sort of, told those lines. The child will not give any regard to their actions and want to kind of, achieve, So yeah, those words are really, really important. Remember, as a parent, as an adult, as a significant person in the child's life, you are the child's role model. And so the child holds us in high esteem and, they hold on to the things, the words we say to them. Yeah, so I would want us to move on to sexual abuse. I know we haven't got much time. Sexual abuse. Adrio, what do we mean by, what do we mean by sexual abuse, and what are some of the kind of the signs to look out for?
So we're saying that sexual abuse entails a child, a young person under 18 years old, in line with the law, that's you know that's been touched sexually. Touch sexually means either through the anus, through an adult exposing themselves to them, and there's a penetration through the vagina, through the anus, through kissing, through making the child watch adult moving or giving the child to engage in sexual activity under the age of 18. And that's classified as a child who has been sexually abused. And sometimes sexually could be two young children playing with themselves sexually, exposing themselves sexually, or getting somebody else to or masturbating, or getting or masturbating other people, get somebody to masturbate in front of them. So sexual abuse can be either penis penetration through the vagina, or penetration through the anus, or a child who's meant to watch pornography. And I know one thing about sexual abuse, and I think many families are very ignorant, that, for example, adults in your house, you're watching pornography, and your children are watching those pornography with you, they are being sexually abused. And so it's not only vaginal penetration, it's not only the fact that the child was sexually touched, either through the vagina, through the anus, or be kissed by an adult, or even by child to child, is classified as being sexually abused. If a child is meant to watch sexually explicit videos, social media, being exposed to social media under the age of 18 consistently, they are being deemed as being sexually abused. Because that will have a devastating impact in terms of their emotional, psychological development, as we already said, like any other form of abuse, basically.
Great, thank you. So Ejiro has mentioned that in terms of sexual abuse, we have contact and non-contact. And Ejiro is saying that, if, I mean, it does not only mean that a child is being touched or raped, there are other forms of, sexual abuse. So so with a non-contact, if a child is watching something on TV with like explicit sexual content that are not age appropriate, and we allow the child to watch these things, then again, that is again sexual abuse. William, have you got anything else to add to it?
No, I've not got anything. Everything has been said. So,
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of, some of the signs, I mean, yeah, I have sometimes you have like parents, let's say African parents watching like Nigerian movies, and stuff are happening on the TV, and the parents would not even mind that the child is there,
mhm.
and the child is just, there also watching, yeah, what would you say? Would you accept? Would you be saying to the parent that, what would you say? Seriously.
Most obviously movies or TV shows will tell you to classify under 15 or 16, or even video games these days. Because I remember, one client says, "Oh, he's only 9 and he was playing the video game of 15-year-old and 16 years old, and some of them did have explicit things in there, and sometimes parents are naive, kind of don't know that even though a movie is classified as 15 upwards, or they think, oh, a 9-year-old can still watch it. But most 15 movies, up to 15 great movies, sometimes they have sexually explicit actions in them. So you have to know that, do you really want a child to be sexualized at that age as a parent? Because whatever your child, the eye is a gate, your ears are gates. So sexual activities, whatever they hear in terms of sexual music or sexual activity, whatever they see, ears is a gate, eyes a gate, mouth is a gate. So those are gates, that whatever comes into those gates stays in most of the time, even as adults. So you need to start thinking as a parent or as a carer, a guardian, what is this child being exposed to? Because they're going to exhibit whatever they're learning, because they're learning. So if they learn that obviously these adults are doing this, they're going to go to school or do it to their siblings or whoever they meet, even classmates, whoever, to that person as well. And that would be a kind of serious impact on that child and others in the community. So we have to start training our African parents. Say, look, this tends to have negative impact. Children, we know now psychologically that children who are exposed to sexual content at early age are likely themselves to go on to abuse others. That's what even though it's not 100% accurate. I mean, about 95%, research is saying they go on to abuse others. We don't want our children to go on and abuse others. We want our children to, the children at that age, and grow up to understand the impact of being exposed early years into sexualized, sexual activities when they are not psychologically ready for it. So this is what I would tell an African parents or any parents at all, that let's stop sexualizing our children. Let's stop, we cannot be ignorant. So when we're watching a movie, let them go upstairs. If you have pornographic videos or social media, especially on their phone, check their phone. Because tomorrow, your child or your daughter, you can just start having sex at early age, or, on the age, it's likely to have a serious impact on them, whether we like it or not. So these things, we carry on over the years, and without knowing that the more a child is exposed to sexualized behavior, sexualized activity, the more psychological damage there is on their emotional well-being, really. In fact, their whole life, basically.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ejiro. Yes, sexual abuse is a topic that we cannot stop talking about, because we want children out there to be safe. And again, in terms of sexual abuse, we need to be mindful that, we are not just talking about girls. Both girls and boys can be victims. And yeah, and again, in terms of some of the signs that you can see, some of the signs, or the impact of sexual abuse. We will just mention a few, and some, and I mean, for instance, when a child has been raped, obviously there can be bruises, as the private area. And again, in terms of the impact of, sexual abuse, some young people or children can go on to kind of self-harm themselves. Self-harm means that deliberately, harming themselves. It could be cutting themselves, as a way of dealing with the trauma of, sexual abuse. And again, we've got mental health, issues can come out of that. We've got depression, anxiety, which can be as a result of, a child being sexually abused. Again, for some children, you would notice that they are bedwetting. We are not saying that when you see your child bedwetting, or when the child, who is not of, of the age to really be, bedwetting, but then he or she is bedwetting. We are not saying that every instance of bedwetting means that the child has been sexually abused, but then we are saying that these are the signs of sexual abuse. So yes, when the child is, your child is of age and the child is bedwetting, it means that something doesn't add up, and as a parent, as a carer, you need to be inquisitive to look into it. So these are some of the signs. And again, I would also mention that, there have been situations whereby, in terms of keeping children safe, I've always said to young people that never share your private information on, like, social media. Now, we've got social media all over, and young people are into it, Twitter and Snapchat and all that. And there have been situations whereby, young people have been lured to kind of send, like, nude photos of themselves. And then what happens is that these people who are, pretending to be safe people will then reach the child and say to the child that, okay, I've got this photo of yours, I've got this nude photo of yours. Now I want you to meet me here, or do this for me, do this for me. If you don't do that, I'm going to share your photo on the internet. By the way, do you want your parent to see that? I guess not. By the way, do you want school to see the photos of your nude photos? I guess not. By the way, do you want your friends to see that? Obviously, every child will become terrified with the thought that, their nude photo, which is really private, will be on the internet and for people to see. Because that in itself is going to kind of raise other problems for the child. So the child many times, make the mistake of sending this photo to this person on the internet. And then, they are then torn between meeting that person, because if they don't do as the person is saying, then there are repercussions. Let us keep but I mean, I always say to young people, no matter what you have done, never meet somebody you don't know. Tell your parents about it. Whatever mistakes that you have made, please inform a responsible adult about it, and then the police can can be called to come in to kind of, support you, because you can't just, threaten somebody to share their images on online anyway. At the same time, young people, we should let them know that do not give your photos to people, even if they are your friends. Don't give photos that, one day if the person decides to share it to everybody on social media, you are going to regret. So don't be sending those photos. Well, yeah. And then to be fair, yeah. So let us keep our young people safe. Let us keep our children safe. Sexual abuse is certainly a big deal, and we would not stop talking about it. Now we're going to go to the last one, which is neglect. And I know, William, you were talking about it briefly. So briefly, can you just summarize neglect for us so that we can kind of run up?
Okay, so neglect is when we fail to meet the child's basic physical and psychological needs, and it's likely to impact on the child by impairing their development. Now, there are many signs of neglect. If you see that the child comes to school and he or she appears hungry, as though they have gone without breakfast, it could point towards neglect. They could turn up to school without lunch money, without money for food, without their packed lunch, and they have nothing to eat. Neglect. Repeated injuries caused by lack of supervision, like every time he comes to school, the child fell down and he got scalded with hot water or something. It could be that they might be lacking supervision, which also constitutes neglect. It is also neglect to give the child inadequate supervision. We know some of us African parents, we find out that Ofsted childminders or registered childminders are quite expensive. So we decide to give our children over to an auntie's friend's sister's brother or that kind of person who might not be qualified, and all they'll do is just to leave the child in the living room while they read their paper or watch the TV. Anything can happen to that child. That is neglect. When the child also appears very thin, with a swollen tummy, it could also point to the fact that they're being neglected. Look at their hygiene. Are they smelly? Do they appear dirty? Look at their teeth as well. Do they have adequate clothing? Are they dressed appropriately for the weather? Do they appear tired all the time? Look at their language skills, their communication skills. How is it? Do they appear anemic? Are they meeting their developmental milestones? Are they appearing to care for their family members? Sometimes family members leave care of maybe disabled family members to children. So the children will not actually have their own childhood, but they will be adultified before their age. And that's,
Thank you, William. And then you
yeah.
also mentioned that neglect can happen in pregnancy. Could you highlight on that for us, please?
Yes. When a parent is pregnant, they know that there's a baby inside of them, that they have to take care of it, of the baby. Now, when they abuse substances, alcohol, drugs, it amounts to neglect, and that's harmful for the baby. Yes, and that baby can be taken away from the parent as soon as they get it comes out, is being delivered.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, William. Yeah. So neglect can, please let us bear this in mind. Neglect can happen also in pregnancy. So like
Mm,
William is saying, for instance, when you are a mom and the mom is misusing alcohol, please
mm.
don't use alcohol at all when you are pregnant, because research is saying that you can have the chances of having a child with fetal alcohol
Alcohol
syndrome.
dependency
Yes,
syndrome.
is
Yeah.
is great.
Mm.
Please never use. Somebody would ask, okay, so can I just take or how much is too much? Can I just take a glass of wine? Please, research again is saying that we don't know how much is safe for a pregnant woman. Nothing else, nothing has come up. Some people have just taken a glass of wine and they've had their child come up with being born with this fetal alcohol syndrome. So please stay away. I know your midwives, your health practitioners will be advising you when you are pregnant. Don't touch alcohol at all during pregnancy. And again, if you do that, that is an aspect of neglect. Again, Smoking is not it's not encouraged because of the impact it would have on the unborn. And any form of drugs, cannabis, heroin, cocaine, whatever, please stay away from any form of substances, because these do have an impact on the baby's health and development. And so we are encouraged not to do that at all. Yes, if you do that, then in terms of our context here in the UK, the local authority would be worried. Children's services will be worried if we have a mom who is misusing, who is using drugs, illicit drugs, during pregnancy, because we have a duty to safeguard the unborn, the baby. Yeah, so that is really helpful. Again, please, when your child is ill and you don't take the child, to seek medical attention, that is worrying. That is not right. Again, like William is saying, that we are looking at the physical appearance of the child. Don't send the child to school with, torn clothes, dirty, clothes, and the child hasn't had a bath or a wash for days. That is again neglecting the child's physical and psychological needs. Please let us be mindful. And the parenting is definitely not easy, but then we learn every day. Just one more question over there, and then we'll be looking to finish. So so Cici is asking that, can you classify FGM as sexual abuse? For the benefit of those who do not know what FGM is, FGM stands for female genital mutilation, a form of circumcision on girls. So Ejiro, do you want to say anything on this?
Okay, so I could just say that the female genital mutilation it's nationally recognized as a human right violation, and it's illegal in England and in the United Kingdom as a whole. Sometimes it's actually referred as female circumcision as well. So the procedures really is on children from from 1 day old until from infancy to 15 years old. So I know in African countries, in some remote part of African countries, it's still something that's being practiced. But I think in the United Kingdom and in the USA, it's illegal. It's classed as a physical abuse and rape of a minor, and people can be arrested and charged. And it's a matter that's actually taken seriously in the developed world. And if a young person come forward and said, they've had FGM, we will trigger child protection procedures within the UK arena. So it's illegal in the United Kingdom to have a female child circumcised, also known as the FGM in this country, basically.
Thank you, Ejiro. Yes, so it is a violation. It's a human rights violation, as Ejiro has said. Please, it is not just an abuse in the context of the UK, but then everywhere. Please don't get into that at all. And yes, if you are found to have done that on your child, or you would have to face social services and the police. It's as simple as that. There is no but or if. It is child abuse, and you would have to kind of face children's services to because we have a duty, or children's services have a duty to safeguard that child. Please just let us bear in mind, female genital mutilation is a no, 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 no. It has no medical advantage to the health of the child. It has nothing. Instead, it causes a lot of trauma. It causes a lot of medical health issues for the child, for the young girl. Please, that is certainly a no, 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 and I would not stop emphasizing on that. Let us send a message out there. If you know of people who are taking people in the UK who are taking their children outside the UK to go and perform female genital mutilation, please draw their mind to the fact that they cannot do that. Please inform children's services so that that child can be safeguarded. That child can be safeguarded. If you have a friend, if you know somebody, your neighbor, your friend, your network, somebody at church, somebody in whatever group you have, and you are told that they are going to take the child maybe during the summer to whatever country it is to go and perform female genital mutilation, please, please, please alert the authorities. And then again, let us be aware that you don't have to, when you call children's services, you can decide to go anonymous. You can let them know that, okay, so I have been told by this people or that person that this mom and this dad or whatever are going to go to, let's say, Ghana, Nigeria, whatever, Gambia, to go and perform female circumcision on this child. And I'm really, really worried. In terms of, social services, we would keep keep you anonymous, but then we will look into it because we have a duty to safeguard that child. Please let us send the message out there. Your phone call to the police and to children's services will be saving the child from this lifelong trauma. Somebody is saying that Jill Levy is saying that even threatening FGL is abuse. That is how serious it is. Thank you so much for that comment contribution. Yes, even threatening the child, or somebody of FGM is abuse. Please let us spread the message. Let us educate people. Safeguarding is everybody's business. Safeguarding is not the responsibility of just the police, children's services, whatever, the safeguarding list of the school or whatever. Please, we all have a duty to safeguard the child. You may be the child's only hope. Let us do what we need to do to keep children safe. Like I said, parenting is not the easiest of tasks, but then we are doing brilliant jobs. Let us keep going and let us seek support. Let us find new ways of doing things even better. And thank you for joining us. So we are just finishing now. As we usually do, we'll just go around. Ejiro, your final comments for this session.
So my final comment, I was just going to say that I know when William was talking about neglect and pregnancy, what came into my mind was pregnancy and domestic violence. And I think most African countries, there's constant argument. Sometimes there's physical altercation, throwing things, breaking things in the house. The research is actually saying it has traumatic impact on the unborn child. And that's classified as emotional and neglect as well. So if you are pregnant out there and you're experiencing domestic violence between yourself and the partner or within your family, it's important you seek help. I mean, there's a telephone number here you can contact. And I think most African communities will say, oh, no, the baby, why can't the baby know what's going on? But from my 15 years of being a social worker, I've seen babies born in hospital. You can tell that the babies actually have experienced trauma when they come out and the one that hasn't. And that, the unknown trauma has psychological impact on their development as they grow up. So even if you're pregnant and you're going through domestic abuse, it is called child neglect and emotional, child neglect in terms of, the legality of it. However, it has devastating domestic, psychological impact on your unborn child. So please, that the numbers are here for you to contact for advice if you're not sure or how to get out of a violence relationship. Maybe your papers are not complete. The man has threatened you, that I'm going to send you back to Africa. I brought you here for whatever. There are help out there. You can seek that help and you can be safe yourself and your unborn child. I don't know who we're talking to today, and your unborn child, you can get the help that's there. There's help out there in the community. So no one should threaten at all because you don't have your papers. You have nowhere to go. That's where I'm going to my line of conclusion tonight.
Thank you so much, Ejiro. That is so helpful. Yes, there is help out there. William, can we come to you? Your final comments for this session.
Okay, my final comments are as follows. With our African parents, I've heard time and again that an uncle or a relative has abused one of the children in the house, and when they tell the mom or they tell the dad says, no, you are lying, shut up, don't say that. They try to ignore him, they try to shut the child down. When a child makes a disclosure like this, listen to them, take it seriously, and take the correct steps. And also, as African parents or as parents all over the world, we need to befriend our children. We need to be their best friends. When I was growing up, my parents were not on my level. I was down and they were up here. So I couldn't always approach them when I've messed up. I couldn't always approach them when something was wrong with me. But I would admonish and plead with parents that please get close to your children so that if something goes wrong in their lives, they can easily approach you. They can easily come to mommy, they can easily come to daddy, because they know that mom and dad are going to listen and are going to help to make things right. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, let's listen to the children. It's really hard for them to report abuse. So when a child reports abuse, don't just ignore it. Please listen to the child and keep the child safe. Let us take the steps. Parenting is not easy. It's hard work, but then we get better at it each day. Let us make those conscious efforts. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We would come back again, and please, whatever we've shared over here, let's all go out and then spread the message. Share with your friends, and let us do safeguard children together. It is our, it is our responsibility, individually and collectively. Let us do what we need to do to safeguard children. Thank you so much, and bye.
Bye.